The fireworks of the September 3rd Victory Day parade have long dissipated, but the anti-Japanese frenzy they ignited continues to spread among the masses. A commemoration meant to mark the end of a war has, ironically, cast an unpredictable shadow of hostility over Japanese people living in China. Many are unaware that the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, never genuinely opposed Japan's invasion. On the contrary, they collaborated with Japanese forces to seize supreme power in China. Today, we'll unveil the hidden history of the CCP's collusion with Japanese forces, starting with the rise of Lin Biao's Northeast Field Army, the precursor to the CCP's elite 38th Army. 1. Why was Lin Biao's 4th Field Army so formidable? The role of Japanese soldiers. In 1945, with Germany's surrender, the European theater of World War II concluded. Japan, however, refused to capitulate. On August 6th and 9th, U.S. bombers dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, delivering a fatal blow. The Soviet Union, seizing the opportunity, declared war on Japan and attacked Japanese forces in northeast China. By August 15th, Japan, exhausted and defeated, announced its surrender. By the end of August, nearly 600,000 soldiers of Japan's Guangdong Army had disarmed and surrendered, with the Soviets occupying the entire Northeast. Per the Sino-Soviet Treaty, the Soviets handed over major cities like Shenyang and Changchun to the Chinese government, then led by President Chiang Kai-shek. Meanwhile, Mao's communists sent Lin Biao to the Northeast, where he established bases in rural areas and smaller cities, receiving some Japanese weapons from the Soviets. On June 26, 1946, the Chinese Civil War broke out. Lin Biao's forces were repeatedly defeated by the Nationalists, at one point nearly driven into Soviet territory. Had the Nationalists succeeded in annihilating them, Chinese history might have been entirely rewritten. Mao would not have stood atop Tiananmen in 1949 to declare the founding of the People's Republic, and China might have progressed toward democracy under Sun Yat-sen's three principles of the people. However, the Soviet Union, alongside the U.S. and the United Nations, passed a resolution threatening Chiang Kai-shek to halt fighting and negotiate with the CCP. This Soviet maneuver bought the Communists critical time to recover. When the Nationalists resumed their offensive, they were stunned to find they could no longer overpower Lin's forces. Not only had Lin Biao's Northeast Field Army suddenly become far more formidable, but their weaponry was also significantly upgraded. Lin's victory in the Liaoshan campaign secured the Northeast Industrial Base and the Liaoshi Corridor, laying the foundation for the CCP's nationwide conquest. Mao himself once remarked that the Liaoshan campaign marked a new turning point in China's military situation, signaling the decisive phase of the war. How did the disadvantaged communist forces turn the tide so quickly? During the ceasefire period, the Soviets reorganized approximately 200,000 Japanese Guangdong Army soldiers from labor camps and integrated them into Lin Biao's army. Why would these Japanese soldiers, instead of returning home, stay to fight for the CCP? According to memoirs from former Japanese officers, not only did tens of thousands of Korean troops join Lin Biao's 4th Field Army, but a significant number of Japanese Guangdong Army soldiers were also reorganized into the Northeast Field Army. The CCP imposed a quota, requiring a small portion of the 600,000 Guangdong Army soldiers to remain in exchange for the repatriation of the majority. Driven by a sense of duty to their comrades, many Japanese believed staying meant certain death, so elite soldiers and key personnel volunteered to remain, securing safe passage for the rest. Further evidence comes from a September 28, 1948, press conference by Matsuhei Kato, head of Japan's Foreign Ministry Investigation Bureau, who revealed that 140,000 former Guangdong Army soldiers and their families either served in the CCP's forces or remained in CCP-controlled areas. Kato's investigation estimated at least 60,000 Japanese soldiers directly supported the communists on the front lines, teaching soldiers to operate artillery and firearms, providing flight instruction, serving as tactical advisors, and even driving tanks against the Nationalist army. Some Chinese mainland media reports have indirectly confirmed the involvement of Japanese soldiers in CCP campaigns. However, they deliberately obscure the truth about the coerced integration of Japanese prisoners of war and provide varying figures on their numbers. The Shenyang arsenal, transformed by the Japanese into one of Asia's most advanced military production facilities, faced a severe shortage of skilled technicians after the Nationalists repatriated Japanese engineers. Many precision machines broke down and couldn't be repaired, forcing the Nationalists to leave them idle. Lin Biao, however, recruited skilled Japanese technicians and medical personnel, around 10,000 in total, who established the early medical system for the Northeast Field Army. These technicians also trained Chinese workers to operate the arsenal, ensuring a steady supply of weapons and ammunition. The CCP's first aviation school and its initial generation of pilots were also products of Japanese expertise, led by Hayashi Aikiro of the Guangdong Army's 2nd Air Corps, whom CCP trainees dubbed the all-purpose instructor. Consider this. Japanese forces once bombed Chinese cities, while American Flying Tigers fought alongside Chinese forces, with some 1,500 U.S. pilots and hundreds of nationalist pilots losing their lives. Did Hayashi and his colleagues bomb Chinese civilians? The CCP didn't care about the Chinese people's suffering. Instead, they encouraged gratitude toward these Japanese soldiers. The Communist Army, largely composed of poorly educated or illiterate soldiers, could not have achieved such battlefield success without Japanese assistance. Moreover, Lin Biao's advanced weaponry, mostly U.S.-made equipment secretly supplied by the Soviets, came from the $4 billion in heavy weapons the U.S. provided to the USSR during World War II via the Lend-Lease Act. Soviet archives confirm that from 1946 onward, these weapons were transferred to the CCP. Some communist soldiers, dressed in PLA uniforms, were even identified as Soviet personnel with big noses and blonde hair. In contrast, the Nationalists faced a U.S. arms embargo starting in late 1946, influenced by General Marshall's misguided ceasefire proposal. The embargo wasn't lifted until November 1948, by which time it was too late. Lacking timely U.S. support, the Nationalists were vilified by CCP propaganda as puppets of American imperialism, fueling anti-nationalist sentiment among the Chinese public. Armed with Soviet-supplied equipment, Japanese-manufactured weapons, and tens of thousands of Japanese and Korean soldiers, the CCP employed ruthless tactics, including human wave assaults and morally reprehensible strategies like stripping women, landlords, officials, or nationalist soldiers' relatives, and forcing them to march at the front to deter nationalist troops from firing. These tactics overwhelmed the nationalists, leading to their defeat and retreat to Taiwan. The CCP ascended to power, rewriting history to claim credit for China's victory in the War of Resistance against Japan. The recent September 3rd parade, held under the guise of commemorating the war's victory, continued this blatant historical revisionism, stoking anti-Japanese and anti-American sentiments. This has led to absurd incidents, like the Japanese flag chair controversy at Wuhan University, where a red circle on a white background triggered hysterical reactions. I wonder, if those who irrationally hate the Japanese learned that the CCP collaborated with Japanese soldiers to overthrow the Chinese government, would they call the CCP traitors? Some are unaware of the truth, while others refuse to believe it. A closer look at mainland media reports reveals the truth hidden in the details. Some mainland media reports mention that Lin Biao's 4th Field Army, the predecessor to the 38th Army, included 30,000 Japanese soldiers in a special logistics force, the most commonly cited figure. However, a Japanese officer in the 4th Field Army revealed in an interview that the actual number was closer to 200,000. This interview, published in the February 2003 issue of China Youth, a magazine overseen by the Communist Youth League, was titled My 38th Army Japanese Comrade Binto Yashikiyo. Its purpose was to praise these disciplined Japanese soldiers for enhancing the 4th Field Army's combat effectiveness and contributing to the liberation of all China. Yashikiyo was the president of the Japanese Veterans Association of the 4th Field Army. Yes, you read that correctly. After the Chinese Civil War, starting in 1953, surviving Japanese soldiers returned to Japan as overseas Japanese. Many, brainwashed by the CCP, felt deep loyalty to the Communist Army. In 1990, a PLA unit even hosted a homecoming tour for these old 4th Field Army comrades. The Japanese Veterans Association of the 4th Field Army, with roughly 10,000 members, including hundreds in Tokyo alone, holds annual gatherings where former Japanese Imperial Army soldiers reminisce about their passionate days fighting nationalists in China, achieving what the Imperial Army could not, defeating the Chinese Army alongside the Communists. The CCP has suppressed the fact that over 100,000 Japanese soldiers, instead of laying down their arms after Japan's surrender, continued fighting for the CCP against the nationalist government, which had genuinely resisted Japan. The commonly cited figure of 30,000 refers mainly to technical and medical personnel, likely an official narrative to downplay the scale. On June 27, 1956, when meeting a Japanese delegation, China's first premier Zhou Enlai said, "We are very grateful to some Japanese people who, during the War of Liberation, participated as doctors, nurses, and technicians, strengthening our confidence in building friendly ties with the Japanese people." Japanese militarism was indeed cruel, but many Japanese people assisted us. Zhou's wording was cautious, limiting gratitude to specific roles to maintain the CCP's facade. His acknowledgement was possible because Mao had already set the tone for the CCP's stance on Japan. 2. Mao Zedong's repeated gratitude for Japan's invasion. Compared to Zhou, CCP leader Mao Zedong was far more brazen and shameless in expressing gratitude for Japan's invasion. Mao told numerous Japanese visitors that Japan's aggression greatly aided the CCP. The CCP's propaganda portrays itself as the leader of China's resistance against Japan, fueling public outrage at the mere mention of Japan's invasion. This has evolved into indiscriminate hatred toward Japanese people. Some may doubt whether Mao truly thanked Japan for its invasion, but the evidence is undeniable. He not only said it, but emphasized it repeatedly. CCP official publications document at least 7 instances of Mao publicly thanking Japan for its invasion. The first shocking remark came in 1956. During a Japanese delegation's visit, former Japanese Lieutenant General Saburo Endo presented Mao with a Japanese sword, symbolizing that Japanese soldiers would never again fight China and apologizing for past aggression. Unexpectedly, Mao responded, "You were our teachers. We must thank you. It was your war that educated the Chinese people, uniting a scattered nation. So, we should be grateful." In December of that year, when Japanese businessman Saburo Nango led a trade delegation to Beijing and apologized for Japan's invasion, Mao not only reiterated his thanks, but bluntly stated, "If Japan hadn't occupied half of China, we'd still be in the mountains, unable to come to Beijing to watch Peking opera." On July 9th and 10th, 1964, meeting with Japanese Socialist Party members, Mao's gratitude escalated. He said, "Why should we thank the Japanese Imperial Army? Because their invasion brought 2 major benefits. First, it weakened Chiang Kai-shek. Second, during the 8-Year War, the Communist Army grew from 20,000 to 1.2 million, with bases controlling 100 million people." His meaning was clear. Japan's invasion enabled the CCP's rise to power. Mao even rebuffed an apology from Sasaki, saying, "No need to apologize. Japanese militarism brought great benefits to China, enabling us to seize power. Without your Imperial Army, we couldn't have done it. On this, we disagree. You and I have a contradiction." The room erupted in knowing laughter. Was Mao being humorous? Or was this a light-hearted way of expressing genuine gratitude? For those watching, do you think the Chinese people, ravaged by invasion, would accept such a knife-twisting joke? If the above remarks to visiting groups or individuals seem informal, Mao's statement to Japanese Prime Minister Kakuei Tanaka carries official weight and is widely known. On September 27, 1972, the eve of China-Japan diplomatic normalization, Tanaka apologized for Japan's invasion and the harm it caused. Mao replied, "Sorry? No, you deserve credit. Without your invasion, how could we have defeated Chiang Kai-shek and seized power? We must thank you for your help." This exchange was recounted by Mao's personal physician, Li Jisui, in his memoirs, noting that Mao even said, "We don't want your war reparations." Documents like Contemporary Chinese Diplomacy and Consular Work, Volume 3, and the 1995 CCP History Press publication, Mao Zedong's International Interactions, also record Mao's remarks about thanking Japan. To the dismay of those who glare at Japanese people with clenched fists, Mao's gratitude for Japan's invasion is no conspiracy theory. It's a blatant, open scheme. 3. Research reveals CCP collusion with Japanese forces throughout the 8-Year War. The CCP's collaboration with Japanese forces wasn't limited to Lin Biao's integration of Japanese soldiers. It spanned the entire 8-Year War of resistance. Renowned Japanese China expert and Tsukuba University emeritus professor Yutaka Endo published findings showing that the CCP, far from fully resisting Japan, shared nationalist military intelligence with Japanese forces during the United Front period to weaken Chiang Kai-shek's government in Chongqing, thereby expanding its own power. This discovery has drawn significant attention. Endo meticulously studied the memoirs of Yiyi, founder of the Japanese Foreign Ministry's EY agency in Shanghai, titled Recollections of Shanghai, cross-referencing them with Chinese, Japanese, and Taiwanese historical records. EY's memoirs reveal that CCP operatives like Pan Hanyin and Yuan Shu maintained close contact with him in Shanghai. Pan not only regularly provided intelligence on nationalist military movements, but also proposed a ceasefire between communist and Japanese forces. Shocked, EY introduced Pan to Nobutaka Kageyoshi, the top military advisor to the Wang Jingwei regime, leading Pan to establish ties with Wang himself. To verify this, Endo visited Japan's Foreign Ministry diplomatic archives, uncovering a detailed report submitted by Pan Hanyin on CCP internal dynamics. This primary document confirms the accuracy of EY's memoirs, proving that the CCP sold nationalist intelligence to the Japanese at a high price and even proposed a truce. Mainland Chinese publications about Pan Hanyin admit that he and Yuan Shu, a multifaceted spy, gained the trust of Japanese forces as underground operatives. However, they claim this was to obtain Japanese intelligence, without ever specifying what intelligence was acquired or how it was used to defeat the Japanese. If Endo's research raises doubts, Soviet sources may be more convincing. Peter Vladimirov, the Comintern's liaison in Yenin and TASS military correspondent, recorded his observations from May 1942 to November 1945 in the Yenin diary. He stumbled upon a telegram from the new 4th Army headquarters confirming regular contact between CCP leaders and the Japanese Expeditionary Army's high command, with periodic reports sent to Yenin. When Mao learned Vladimirov had seen the telegram, he personally explained why CCP leaders maintained ties with the Japanese military. The CCP operatives involved included 4 key figures: Pan Hanyin, who played a central role in negotiations and intelligence exchanges; Rao Shushi, political commissar of the new 4th Army; Yang Fan, head of its military law department; and Zheng Shan, deputy secretary of the Southeast Bureau and father of Jiang Zemin's advisor, Zheng Qinghong. Zheng Shan traveled to Shanghai and Nanjing to negotiate secretly with the Japanese, urging them to attack only the nationalists, not the communists. During the Cultural Revolution, Red Guards uncovered secret files on Zheng Shan's negotiations with the Japanese, accusing him of treason and subjecting him to public criticism. Zheng called Zhou Enlai, the head of the CCP's intelligence network and a key orchestrator, who protected him. These traitorous files, uncovered by the Red Guards, remain accessible in the Cultural Revolution database published by the Chinese University of Hong Kong. These sources collectively confirm that, under Mao's leadership, the CCP publicly championed resistance against Japan while secretly colluding with Japanese forces. For the sake of their party's interests, They betrayed the nation, backstabbing the central government fighting a bloody war. How many Chinese patriots died because of intelligence the CCP handed to the Japanese? Knowing this truth, consider the CCP's efforts to promote its myth as the pillar of resistance against Japan, claiming leadership in the war effort while deceiving the world. Is there anything more shameless and evil? Returning to Pan Hanyin. Because he knew the inner workings of the CCP's Japanese collusion, he was the first to be purged in the 1950s when the truth began to surface. Mao accused Pan of unauthorized contact with Wang Jingwei, labeling him and Yang Fan as the Panyang counter-revolutionary group. Their subordinates and colleagues were implicated and imprisoned. Rao Shushi, a core underground leader, was accused of being Pan's handler and sentenced to life imprisonment. Both Pan and Rao were tortured to death during the Cultural Revolution. By purging Pan, Mao silenced the underground network, effectively destroying evidence. The CCP leadership genuinely thanked Japan's guns and swords for their bloodshed. Why, then, should Chinese people harbor hostility toward modern Japanese who have not invaded China? Shouldn't we question whether the CCP's incitement of hysterical anti-Japanese sentiment is meant to cover up their anti-government, rather than anti-Japanese truth? The guiltier they feel, the more they feign hatred toward Japan. Yet many Chinese have fallen for this deception. On January 14th, 2022, Nikkei Asia published an article titled "Japan's ODA to China Draws to a Close," noting that Japan ended its official development assistance, ODA, to China, which began in December 1979. Over 40 years, Japan was China's largest donor, accounting for 66.9% of global aid to China, totaling 3.66 trillion yen, approximately $32.2 billion, by 2015. Japan's ODA funded major projects like Beijing International Airport, Shanghai Pudong Airport, Wuhan Tianhe Airport, Shanghai Baoshan Power Plant, China-Japan Friendship Hospital, and Beijing Subway Line 2. In other words, Japan played a critical role in providing the first bucket of gold for China's reform and opening up era. Yet, most Chinese people, especially ordinary citizens, are largely unaware of this. History does not forget. It awaits the truth. Whenever China faces a major crisis, the CCP resorts to the old tactic of anti-Japan sentiment, continuously stoking hatred. While the CCP today cries blood debt, it has quietly benefited from Japan's contributions. When the lies are exposed and the absurdity of relying on Japan to defeat the nationalists clashes with anti-Japanese patriotism, the true entity on trial should be the CCP regime, which manipulates history for political gain.